that much to it. So let's jump into it real quick. So this is it right here. Yeah, I'm not gonna take up too much time. I'm not gonna try to do it for like 15 or even 10 minutes. It's just a brief overview. You guys can actually check out the Patreon page. It is listed on the Twitch website along with all the other social media links. So you guys can read through it. There's some interesting tiers on there. You should definitely see which one is appealing to you. But just a brief overview. Tier 1, official patron for $2 a month. Tier 2, all access patron, where you get access to early access to finished pages and exclusive content that isn't going to be posted on any other social media aside from the Patreon page, and a bunch of other cool perks on there as well. Then we got a tier 3, which is the critique submission tier. So if you're working on something, you want to get a couple of hints and tips, and just an idea of where you could improve on your drawing, what you need to do to make your drawing look better. That's a good tier to read through. Then moving on to the next tier, there's 6 altogether. This tier is the Kickstarter patron tier. In this tier, I'm going to be doing a high resolution digital painting of you. I do encourage you guys to have masks, makeup, glasses, expressive face expressions, hats, and accessories to make it more interesting. So it'll be fun for the viewers as well. But it's not necessary. You could just send a portrait of you from a photo from your head down to your neck, and I will do a digital painting of you guys. The critique tier is going to be held every Friday. The Kickstarter patron tier is going to be held every Thursday. So Thursday and Friday, it's going to be 2 hours of each of these tiers instead of the regular schedule. Then we got the tier 5 artist promotion. So if you're an advanced or an intermediate or advanced artist and you want to promote your work on the Art Lounge, you want to be part of the Art Lounge community and just expose your work to all the viewers from all the different social media platforms that I regularly post to. That's a great opportunity. There's some requirements there. There's some important information you definitely want to read through before you even consider this tier. Yeah, it's all listed on there, and you guys can always ask me questions and I'll be happy to answer them. So that's $25 a month, and you could do this once. You could submit it and cancel if you're not planning to resubmit again. You won't lose access to the Discord server. I'll mention that. So you'll still have access to the Discord server. You'll still be able to interact with everybody from all different tiers once you make a pledge for a month. Then we got the next tier. The next tier is tier 4. Well, it really should be tier 5. That's interesting. Let me just refresh that. I did do a couple of changes there for it to make sense. There you go, tier 5. So tier 5 is limited to 15 people. It is private tutoring. So and this is perfect for people of all skill levels. So if you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced, anything in between even, and you want to get some personal tutoring done, this is a good tier for you. Read through it. There's some important information on there. You will get 4 personal video lessons per month, so 1 video per week, curtailed to just you, and you'll also get a private Discord channel. So it'll be a one-on-one session. Nobody else is going to have access to it. You can leave comments, you can leave questions, you could post your progress, and I'll write you back, or I'll talk about it in the next video that I'm going to send you. So yeah, take your time, guys. Look through it yourselves. Read through it. See which tier is appealing to you. And you could also check out the video in the Twitch channel. In the collection section, there is highlights. There's a highlights folder where I post all the different unique posts or streams, and you'll find the Patreon page launch stream. It's called Patreon page launch and schedule change. So you could check that out. I go through each tier and I talk about each one in detail. And I'll also be doing another more detailed overview of the Patreon page launch tomorrow. So that's pretty much it. I do want to just jump into drawing today, so let's not waste any more time and head over to the sketchbook. So what you guys are seeing, this is from last night's stream. If you've missed it, this is the drawing comic stream. I'm gonna pull up chat right now. All right, so chat is up. Yeah, so this is the page from the Drawing Comics stream. I will be back to Drawing Comics most likely next week, unless you guys want more of this stream. I'm currently focusing more on the project stream, so for the times that I'm not streaming the critique, I'm not streaming the Patreon Kickstarter patrons, I will be doing the project stream instead at 9 p.m. All right, so where did we leave off? We left off at figuring out this figure. I'm not going to do an overview. I did one yesterday. I'm going to give today a rest. I'm going to try to draw more than I am going to review any content. But just to briefly go over this one, it just kind of summarizes everything that we've learned in Chapter 1, everything I was talking about in Chapter 1. And yeah, so just to go over that real quick, perfect way to start out drawing the figure is using these basic shapes. You want to make sure that it's drawing lightly. You know, as you can see, all this is drawn out fairly light. You know, for the sake of demonstration, I put a little bit more pressure on it to make it more visible for you guys. But the idea is you want to give yourself some sort of groundwork. You know, you want to be able to let's just say, for example, when you're building a building, you got to have beams down before you start laying on the bricks, before you start designing the house, right? Before you put up the windows and doors, you got to make sure that the structure is going to be solid, that it's going to have its parameters for you to work in to make sure you don't run out of bricks or whatever else. So this is basically the same idea. These are your beams. You're making sure that your structure is solid, that things are in the right amount of parameters, like as far as proportion goes, right? The leg isn't way too wide in comparison to the other one, etc. So this part of the process, this stage in your drawing should be very light. You should just quickly give yourself some foundation, some groundwork to work within. And then from there, as you could see, using these basic shapes, you know, a lot of times people start out and they'll start drawing like sketches, or they'll try to quickly draw something and they don't really know what. You know, it's just this idea of keeping the pencil moving, trying to catch up with your mind in a sense, like whatever your mind is telling you to, you're trying to draw it out. And sometimes it's these like really messy lines because you just don't know really how to quickly move about, like what are you doing quickly. So by using these basic shapes, by practicing them over and over again, you're able to jump into that straight away. rather than making, messy lines or just whatever you possibly can. You're already so used to drawing basic shapes that is your sketch. That is something that you quickly work and create parameters in the page. So yeah, just doing that enables you to create the figure, create the pose. And then from there, once you do that, you could start connecting the limbs together, right? You could start connecting the arms, you could start connecting the legs to each other, to the body, that sort of thing. So this kind of demonstrates that process. And on this page here, it's the same idea. You're kind of like trying to understand. Well, it's different. It's not really exactly the same. You're trying to get a better understanding of why certain shapes are the way that they are. Once you understand the inner workings, then the shape of the body starts to make sense, and you could correct yourself mid-drawing, knowing like, hey, it's supposed to be this wide because there is this bone that it's resting on, and the reason why there's like a bulge here is because that is where the hip bone is, or rather the leg bone is. This is like the hip area as well. So knowing where the bones are, in a sense, allows you to understand why certain things are the way that they are. Knowing that in between like the rib cage and the hip area, the hip bones, there isn't really any bones there. It's just like ligaments and muscles that kind of connect the top two. So it kind of dips in there, right? It dips into this area where there isn't anything kind of pushing back in a sense. So you just, understanding these inner workings allows you to correct yourself, allows you to build the figure and the body and get the anatomy down better. So the more tools you have, the more ways you have to understand the figure and anatomy, the easier it becomes for you. You get a well-rounded sort of understanding of the figure. You got all these different ways to check yourself, in a sense, and know, are you doing it right? So you got that, you got the quick light drawing, you got the cylinder shapes to simplify the body into something more easily, I guess, more easier to tackle, rather than it being like really complicated and you having to draw like all the details of the muscles as you're going along. Once you sketch it all out, you know that it's going to fit on this page, and then when you go into detail, you don't have to worry about that anymore. You don't have to be like, oh, by the time I get to her foot, is it going to look right? Is it going to be proportionate? You already gave yourself the groundwork for it. That's the point of this stage, as I was mentioning before, these two stages. So yeah, from here on, you can start building on top of it, in a sense, on top of these parts of the body. And a lot of times there was like temptation when I was practicing in the very beginning. There was a lot of temptation to go into the details so that you can tell yourself, hey, this looks good. And it's very tempting, of course. You want to feel as if though the effort you're putting in is going to give you some rewarding results, in a sense. You could start to feel good about your skill, about whether you're nailing it down or not. So the temptation of jumping into that detail, to fleshing things out more, is really high. You're really wanting to, you want to jump that gap. It's kind of what happens in a lot of cases. And I think it's just like a very common thing that happens with people. It's like, they want to show to themselves that they're able, they're capable, they're incredibly smart, they're intelligent, and all those things are true. It's just a matter of time. Patience and dedication, where you'll start to see those results. And I think sometimes it also becomes this thing where people really want to find this calling, as they said, right? Or they want to be that person who just is able to naturally be really good at something. I think that's a very common desire, and in some ways it becomes a problem as well, because if you find out that that's not the case, so let's say you're not getting it down, it becomes disheartening, right? Because you're just like, damn it, I really wanted that to be the case, and it's just this like internal dialogue that I think a lot of people have, where they disappoint themselves because of that, and they stop trying, or they stop putting in effort, or they get frustrated more, as opposed to just being like, well, it's something that takes some time. And my most common example of it is like the alphabet, right? When you first started to learn the alphabet, it wasn't like once you learned it, you were able to read like the most complicated books. It took some time for you to be able to recite it, understand it all, pronounce words, all those things took some time. And because you stuck to it in a way, like, well, you've had the push, I'm sure, from school, from your parents to continue to do it. And then eventually it became second nature, right? It became just like this instinctive habit in a sense. And you could easily read sentences, you could read books without a problem. And we just kind of forget that process was really there. That's what really brought us this ability. So it's the same idea with this. You really do have to just stick to it. You have to learn these basics. This is your alphabet in a sense. You are still in that phase where you're really trying to understand the human figure in its appropriate and its proper dimensions. And then after that, it's going to be a matter of like, well, what do you do with that? Are you going to you can start studying fine art? Are you going to do comics? Are you going to use a lot of references? You're going to work from imagination? That's really, there's like multiple steps to it. It's not like as I mentioned, once you learn the ABCs, you're able to just do all the most complicated things ever. There's multiple stages to it. So with that dedication, you will absolutely get there. It's not a race. I don't think, I don't believe in that. Especially when it comes to art. It's never about the race. It's about enjoying the process. It's about really liking what you're doing. So it's not illustration. If it's music, it's the same idea. And a lot of people think of it that way too. Oh, am I a virtuoso? Am I somebody who's going to like pick up an instrument and become incredibly good in no time, in like a week? In a couple of days, I'll be able to play really good music. It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. And it shouldn't be a big deal, because again, you really just want to learn the medium, whatever it is. It's about that. So just remember that, that's really the case. Or maybe it's not for you. That's something for you to explore. Maybe you'd rather play music, or maybe you'd rather draw if you're learning to play music. I think that's what art is really about. It pushes you to kind of explore yourself and to see which do you really like. Once you strip yourself of that desire to become this like virtuoso, prodigy, whatever, like, and you really start focusing on like, well, what is it that I really like about it? What do I enjoy about it? It then becomes more prevalent, more about the experience, because you're focused on that now. Like, I really want to learn this instrument. I really want to play this music. What do I do? What does it take for me to get there? How can I get there? And all this is just guidance for you to be able to get there faster. So you could start creating your own content and exploring your own way of doing whatever it is, whichever artistic medium you're choosing. But yeah, you have to put in that time. You have to put in the dedication and effort, and you have to totally ignore the idea that things are going to be disappointing. That should be expected. You should know that things are not going to turn out well, that things are going to look terrible, they're going to look unskilled, and still keep pushing through it. Just keep reminding yourself that that's just part of the learning process, like the alphabet, like tying your shoe. That's not something you were, like when you first started out, you were really thinking about it. You were like, okay, I do this, and I do that, and I create this knot. And then you would get a tied shoe. But now you don't think about it, right? You just automatically do it. So it's like a simplified way to explain, like, hey, this is what just the process is, If you're chasing something like wanting to be a prodigy, it's totally a different thing. You're not thinking about, oh, is it the instrument? You're not thinking about drawing. You're not thinking about that. You're thinking about this idea of being really good at something. So you're just detaching yourself from what it's really about and making it more about, making yourself feel better. Not that I'm saying that's wrong. I just, to feel better about yourself or whatever, I just think that's the wrong approach if you're interested in art. I don't think that it's healthy. I think you'll get much better results if you just focus on whatever it is that you're taking interest in it. And then eventually you'll get to a point where you're really happy with it, that you've achieved what you sought out to do, whether it was playing an instrument, whether it's drawing, painting, whatever. And not only that, you'll be happy about drawing, you'll be happy about playing music, it'll be more about that. It's not like once you get to that point, you're like, okay, I'm going to hang up my coat now. Like, I got there. And I think it's kind of sad in a way. You're spending all that time just to do that. And it's, I wouldn't say it's the best approach to it. Like, I think the more you explore all the different arts, the more you stay connected to all that stuff, whether it's fine art, whether it's comics, all those things keep you inspired in a sense. And that has happened to me too. Like when I was going through a stage of like dry spell or just like thinking about stuff, I was like, what is it about it? And I would get really analytical about it and all that stuff, and then I would see some like awesome film, or I would see some really great comic book work, and it would just re-inspire me to keep pushing and keep pursuing it. So I think it's important to like stay connected with it. Look at art, look at comics. That's one of the ways to keep yourself inspired. If you're on social media, find more artists that you like and look through their work. Do all these different things to keep yourself motivated, to keep learning, to push past all this frustration that you're going to have in the learning process. Hey, Kai Archer. Yeah, it's just, I think when you start focusing more on the process rather than the results, it becomes more fun as well. You're really focusing on the figure, you're challenging yourself to understand more and pick up more, and less focused on like, oh, I'm not getting this, I'm not seeing the quick results that I was expecting. And that way you just automatically train yourself to really focus on enjoying what you're doing. Dedication, I think, is the most crucial part to pretty much anything that you want to do and see change and result in. It's just dedicating yourself. And I noticed it's a very similar process for other things as well too, like working out, for example. Just pushing past this, like, I don't want to, or pushing past the frustration, or pushing past the fact that you're not seeing quick results. Like, it's a very similar experience there. That's why they say, there's no quick way, there's no shortcuts to getting really good results, or anything worthwhile is difficult because of, and that's true, that process is difficult. Having to push yourself past all these roadblocks, having to push yourself past these like moments where you feel unmotivated, and moments where you're just like, I'm just not seeing the results that and just still sticking to it, not giving into that, not giving up in a sense, really does it helps. You will see that result because of that. Just simply that, by showing up every time to that specific thing, like whether it's like sitting down every day and drawing for 30 minutes or an hour, even better, or when you're not feeling like exercising or whatever, you still push past it and you do it anyways. Like, all that ends up paying off. And then the next part of it all is to challenge yourself. So now I got myself into the rhythm of doing it daily. It's no longer a question. Like, I've dedicated myself to doing this every day, regardless of how I feel about it. So now what? Now what do I do? And it's just it's this continuous push to get better, to improve on things. It's kind of similar, I want to say, like a good metaphor for those who play video games. It's like leveling up, right? If you keep, let's say, if you're playing one of those like RPGs or whatever, by fighting the same monsters over and over again, you're not gonna get much experience. You're not gonna get much leveling up in a sense. But if you move on to more difficult, more challenging tasks, that will level you up faster, right? You will become stronger, let's say, or your abilities will increase, and you'll gain new abilities in a sense, right? So it's kind of like a metaphor in a sense. Like, all that stuff that you see in video games are kind of like metaphors for just things that happen in life anyways. If you just keep doing all those things over and over and over again, your skill will eventually increase. You'll gain new abilities. You'll start drawing faster, you'll start drawing better, and you'll want to do new things or focus on new things. So it's the same idea. It's the same kind of that's what it's kind of built on. It's like game makers are kind of like hinting, like hint, this is what happens when you challenge yourself. This is what happens when you push yourself past your comfort zone. This is what happens when, despite you, let's say, getting killed in the game and then respawning, you go back and you do it again, and then you get past it. You get past that level. So it's like, in some ways, it's just like, it's giving you the framework of how it works, but it's giving you that immediate gratification. You know, you feel like you've accomplished something, even though you're just playing a game. You know, you haven't really gained any skill. It's like just within the game, it makes you feel like you did. So it's like a double-edged sword. In some ways, it's giving you clues on like, hey, this is kind of how things work in other areas as well. You know, whether it's you playing music, whether it's you learning to draw, whether it's you learning a new language. Let's just say it's the same sort of process, same sort of idea. You know, you level up as you put yourself in positions where it's not comfortable, it's not easy. Kick yourself out of the comfort zone, and then eventually you gain something else from it, something better. You excel. I think that's the pitfall of video games in some ways. It's like people gain that satisfaction, they gain that exhilaration from something that doesn't really improve their own life. You know, just superficially kind of does that. But that same sort of experience, the same sort of challenge, that like leveling up process is very much the same for things that really do improve people's lives. Like I was mentioning, learning a new language, you know, or instrument, or drawing, or coding, let's just say, if you're into that. All those things have that. So people would substitute their time for that immediate gratification of video games with something else that really does build interesting experience. You know, it's not just about gaining a skill that everybody's telling you have to do, you know, you have to gain or whatever. It's just an interesting process on its own. I started using Duolingo, and I started learning language there, and I started to notice that it's the same kind of principle, you know, showing up every day to that app and challenging myself to like new training, new lessons. And if I didn't understand something, I would go back and review it again, and then next day I would start out with that. You know, like whatever it was that was really challenging that I couldn't remember, I would spend more and more time on it until it wouldn't be difficult to remember, or it wouldn't be much of a challenge anymore. And then I would move on to the next one, and then little by little, I would pick up more and more. So right now I'm working on the shadows, and it's something that I mentioned in the basics class, or the basics stream rather, that you know, pay attention to how the light source hits the object in a sense. So when you're drawing a circle and you're trying to do shading on it, it's very different than when you're trying to do the shading on a cylinder shape. You know, it wouldn't be from the top down, it would be from side to side. You know, so this is just another example of, well, it's even in the first example too, when I was drawing out the body in its basic shape form. Over here, it's just demonstrating that that shape is side to side. You know, it starts out from highlights, works its way to the midtones, and then shadows. Just another way to just memorize how that works, how the shadows form on the cylinder shape, which eventually is this, right? I mean, this is kind of what was the point of it? It's like the cylinder shape eventually, after you start connecting all of the limbs together, you start giving the cylinder shape, more definition, it eventually turns into a leg. So that shading technique that you understood for the cylinder shape ends up carrying itself over for the leg and other parts, the arms, even the torso itself. As I mentioned, it's like just one giant, let's just say one giant cup, right? Just to see that here, just really a giant cup in a sense. So by simplifying it, it makes it less intimidating. You're able to just sketch it out better that way. And then eventually it's just going to be like a quick thing for you. You're not going to spend so much time trying to draw out the cylinder shape or wrestling with the thickness of the lines or how hard you're pressing on it, that sort of thing. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to be uploading these to the Patreon page so you guys can have more content to work from. You could download these pages and you could spend time copying them over and over again, drawing them, to just get more and more familiar. Hold on one second. Yeah, that way you guys have something to exercise. If you're sitting down and you just want to do some stretches before you jump into doing really difficult work, these pages are excellent for that because they're simple, they're not too complicated. You're practicing all these different elements, drawing lightly, practicing your basic shapes, practicing how to draw a perfect circle, how to draw the cylinder, keeping your hand not too close to the tip, not holding it all the way at the bottom, giving it the death grip because you want to make sure that every single line is right. You want to get used to keeping your distance so that way you could see the entire image. As you could see even in this example, like I can't see the entire body. I could just see what's in front of my fingers in a sense in this position. But once I start giving it distance, not only is it easier to cover more ground, like if I was to want to do a big circle, it just becomes uncomfortable holding it at that level. But when you keep it here, you're able to do that in much more of a smoother and easy going kind of motion. So yeah, all these examples, they just give you that freedom. You could focus on technique. You could focus on all these different principles without having to worry about what am I going to draw, or whatever it is that I'm drawing. It seems a little bit too complicated. So check that out. I'll be uploading that through the week, so you guys have something more to practice. Let's see. So moving on, because this is pretty much done, we are moving on to chapter 3. Chapter 2 wasn't too long. There were some things that I skipped just because I don't think that they make good content for the stream. This is a great book. I really do encourage you guys to check it out. It has all the different parts for you to study or just to look at, even to get a better understanding of it visually. But yeah, now just moving on to something more specific, which is the head. Right, and as I mentioned to you guys, this book is coming to a close. I'm excited about it. This is going to be the last page, basically, before I start my new sketchbook. So I'm going to try to cover as much of it as possible. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just straighten this out. So give me 1 second. I'm going to get myself scissors. All right. As I mentioned, I really want to take advantage of all the pages. I don't want to waste any of the space there. I've done that so much in my sketchbook. I don't want to perpetuate that. I want to take advantage of it. And for those of you just tuning in, I'm going to show you guys real quick what I mean. Just using pretty much as much of the space as possible. Just drawing all over it. Not just focusing on the center of the page and just covering it up with with as much space as possible through every page. That's what like the sketchbook is about, really. It's not supposed to be your final pages, you know, your masterpieces or whatnot. This is just your ability to practice as much as possible. And the excellent thing about all this is you also get over the fear of colliding objects. You're not too scared of drawing something over something else. You know, that could be intimidating as well. Your vision can kind of get scrambled, right? And you're just like, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure everything has its own space in a sense. But when it comes to drawing comics, you know, when it comes to just drawing interesting things, you want to make sure that you're able to collide things in a sense. And you guys could see here I'm drawing hands, and I'm doing it multiple times. And as I mentioned, doing it once is never enough. You want to make sure you're doing it over and over and over again to get a better understanding of it daily. Ingrain it in your head. It's like reciting the alphabet every day to make sure that you remember it. And that's what you had to do. So this is the same concept of it. You have to keep drawing them as many times as possible, and you'll just get more of a, I want to say, well-rounded understanding of it. You know, you'll start to catch on to little details and reoccurring themes, and you could be like, oh yeah, okay, now I get it. This is how you draw the hand. You know, these are things that you do have to include when you draw the hand for it to look good. But I pretty much try to fill up every single page as much as possible. There's certain areas where I kind of left it blank. You know, you could still do things around here, and here as well. Really fill it up as much as possible. That's really my goal here. And yeah, I encourage you guys to do that as well. You'll make use of your sketchbook. You'll feel proud at the end. You'll be like, oh, I really put in as much as possible into it. You know, every single page was my full effort in a sense, and it becomes rewarding. But yeah, just wanted to share that with you guys, considering that 3 pages left, and then I'm going to be starting a new book, and this time it's not going to be a small. The reason why I chose for it to be a small one is just to show that you could do a lot with a small sketchbook. I mean, it's almost the size of my hand. It's a little bit bigger, but yeah, you don't really need a huge book. You don't need, in fact, in some ways it's beneficial. You could put it in your book bag, you could pull it out, and it's compact size. You know, you could do this wherever you're sitting on a train, waiting to get to your destination, whatever it is. You know, even if you're on a plane, the same idea. They're less bulky, so you could do a lot more with it. And as you guys saw, I was even doing comic book pages on there as well. So you don't really, for those of you with limited space, you could absolutely draw. So no excuse there either. you could learn even with like the smallest sketchbook. But yeah, in this chapter 3, at the beginning, it's going to be about the head. So I'm going to start out by doing something that I was mentioning before, a very important part, which is drawing the circle for the head. You don't want it to be lopsided. You don't want it to be crooked in some ways, because no matter how much detail you're going to put into your image at the end, it's not going to cover up that the head looks distorted. The head looks deformed in some ways when you didn't intend it to be. So make sure that part, you know, you're drawing out the circle and that it actually is a circle. It's not oblong. It's not like warped in some ways. Try to get as good at doing that as possible. It's a very, very important shape. So we got that, right? We started out with that. Then we're going to do the cup shape underneath it. It's kind of like an ice cream cone. One of those ices that you see where it's like a scoop on top of it. And then we divide it. And that's beneficial in ways to make sure that things are coming out proportionate, and it makes it easier rather than you having to have like a general scope of things. Now you kind of divide it and it's easier for you to compare and say, oh, okay, just want to make sure I'm not going over, which might look like it. And we're going to try to do this before I end the stream. But yeah, this allows you to compare and say, okay, well, is this eye that I'm going to draw, is it going to be in the same line, you know, or in the same row in a sense as the other one? So somewhere to work from, you know, not just kind of blindly putting down these lines and then finding out later after you got into more detail that, oh, one eye is higher than the other one. And there's no going around that. You know, you have to erase it and do it again so that it looks right. So we got another line here for the nose. One more for the mouth. Any example is different. They only do 3 rows. But I like to do 1 for the eyes, 1 for the nose, 1 for the mouth to get a better understanding. Hi, Marco. Glad you could make it as well. Unfortunately, you're tuning in right before I end the stream for Drawing Basics, but I will be coming back for the project stream at 9 p.m. So stick around for that. But for now, I'm just going to try to give a quick example of this, drawing the face. Now, this is a important part. You know, when you're drawing the eye, make sure that it's not too far away from the nostril. Like, this is such a big mistake a lot of people make when they're drawing, is that they totally neglect that distance. So like, let's say the corner of the eye, it shouldn't be too far from the nostril, or where the nostril starts, I guess, going towards the bottom. When you make that mistake, the face looks really elongated. It looks really stretched out. And I've noticed that a lot of people don't pay attention to that. They don't notice that that is something that kind of makes the entire image look wonky. So if you notice something is off about your face when you're drawing it, check that. Check to make sure that the distance isn't too far, and play around with it. You know, if you're not really sure, don't hesitate to erase. You're still learning. It's important. It's an important thing to do. And the same thing goes for the opposite. You don't want it to be way too close to it. You know, then it ends up making the face look kind of weird as well. Here, just to demonstrate different planes on the nose, how this part of the nose really jots out. And the space between the eyes should be about an eye, like an eye's width apart. So it shouldn't be too close, and it shouldn't be too far away where the edge of the eye, the corner of the eye towards the ear, isn't extremely close to the ear itself. So you want to make sure you look out for that space as well. This space right here. And the best way to notice these things as well is to draw from real life. You know, to draw, and if you can't draw a person in real life, use a reference. You know, use a photo, pick some photo where it gives you pretty good lighting of the face, so you're not wrestling with the lines as much. And draw it out. You know, draw as many as you possibly can. And you'll start to recognize these mistakes and avoid them. You'll start to get a better understanding of like how far should the nostril be from the mouth, how far should the nostril be from the eyes. Like that's something that you just pick up from drawing them more and more and more. But those tips, I think, are incredibly helpful. Making sure that the corner of the eye isn't too far away from the nostril, like this gap right here is very important to pay attention to. It's a thinking process, you know. A lot of people think when it comes to drawing that it's just this intuitive thing. You sit down and instantly you're able to like, or somebody who's really good at it is able to just do it, and it's just this magic thing that they almost have no control over. But it is a thinking process. The person who is doing it, they're thinking about these things in their mind, like, maybe I shouldn't draw the corner of the eye too close to the nostril. And just becomes, after a while, it just becomes second nature. You know, just as I mentioned, when you're reading, you don't have to recite the alphabet, right? You already learned it. It just comes to you intuitively. The same thing happens here. You practice it enough. You don't have to keep reminding yourself. It just becomes intuitive. You just know that looks right. You know, your hand and your eye are in sync, and your eye is able to just recognize these things subconsciously, and your hand is able to just do it properly. So this is just a quick demonstration, guys. I do unfortunately have to end the stream, but it was a quick demonstration just to show the importance of all these different things, making sure that you draw the circle right, since it's such a crucial part of the drawing. You're going to be using the head as the unit of measurement for the rest of the body, as I mentioned before. Tomorrow, I will be doing a review of all the unit of measurements for the head. You could also go on the Patreon page, and once you pledge to tier 2, all access patron, you will get access to the pages that I uploaded, which specifically is starting with this page right here somewhere. Getting closer. There you go. Starting with this page, you guys will have access to that. You could download it, you could practice it, you could study it, you could print it, and just have it there for you, for reference, for studying, for practicing, and drawing in your own sketchbook over and over again. But tomorrow I will be going into this review again, talking about all the unit of measurements, how important it is to make sure that the head is drawn out properly, and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's it for the basics class for today, guys. Tomorrow I'm going to be back again at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to do more drawing basics. So tune in then, and if you guys enjoy the content, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. They both help grow the stream and spread it. And stick around. I'll be back in 5 minutes for the project stream.